Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgier kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We love you guys, and thank you so much again. It's really amazing what you guys do for us. And a big thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code SINISTER and get 10% off all of our purchases. We're doing a big push to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you like what we do here, definitely hit that subscribe button. If you've been here for a couple of times and enjoyed the content, please, we encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Help us hit 2,000 and reach that goal by the end of the year. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're talking about the Tabaxi. The Tabaxi come from a place called Mestica, and it's a faraway island kind of cut off on a distance, and it's very jungle in that area. They developed a very interesting way of life as they were kind of isolated there. There were other species there like wild halflings, which are kind of crazy entities on their own, but we're not going to discuss that really. They really were like a hunter-gatherer society, so they did a lot of just animalistic, and they were kind of predators. A lot like where the feral cat came from is inherent in the Tabaxi, but one of the more interesting things about them is they don't like to trade. They like to take what's theirs for their clan, as they were hunter-gatherers. Clanmanship is kind of something that's inherent with that. So they wouldn't go out and trade with other tribes, nor would they really bother with them at all, unless there was some real interest. So trading really wasn't something they were very involved in. Sometimes they would outsource it. They would third-party trade with people or send other people out to trade with other tribes in order to get the things that they needed. They're very strange in that kind of sense, almost like they deliberately want to be separated from everything else. But it kind of showed because their technology never really evolved the way it would had they been working together and unified in that kind of a sense, which is a very interesting take because they're still very inherently kind of just hunters and gatherers, even in a modern sense, where they go out on adventures, they go out to do these great things, but they do it almost to survive, but not as a full-blown unit like a society, but still in that small kind of clan-esque kind of a manner. There are actually two kinds of Tabaxi. There's the regular Tabaxi that you would see, and then there's a very aggressive type called Tabaxi Lords, and they're more like jaguars and bigger cat kind of Tabaxi. They are evil. They are some nasty characters. They are usually involved in warlords and constant attacks and things like that. They are dangerous and very, very aggressive. It's a unique thing. You don't normally see them, but when they do occur, they do tend to fight and vie their way into positions of power. And if they manage to take over the head of the Tabaxi leadership, which is usually a shaman, they'll force the shaman to do their will and make the Tabaxi aggressive and dangerous and almost like a warring party, which is something that's really unusual when you take your normal perception of what a Tabaxi is. They're usually very just like house cats. They're very mercurial. They're very aloof. They get interested in something, then they're not a second later. And you take that away and you put it with aggression and dominance, and you end up with what's called a Tabaxi Lord. One of the more interesting parts of the Tabaxi history is how they came about into the modern world. So, a captain of a ship of disciples of Helm, the deity, found their way onto the island. And they started just taking over the island and destroying everything in sight. They attacked the Tabaxi, they attacked every living organism that was there, and they wanted to dominate it and create it as a trade hub, and they called it the Port of Helm. And while there, it kind of felt like a full-blown assault. So if you ever have a party of all Tabaxi and you want to run a great campaign and you don't really have something planned out yet, that's a great thing to just work through. It's the history of the island of Mestica, and you have these Tabaxi, and then all of a sudden these invaders come in with their heavy armor and their swords and all this divine purpose that they feel, and have them try and fight their way into conquering your lands. That's a very exciting campaign. But the Tabaxi fought them back and ended up being able to survive and endure as the world kind of despised what the Order of Helm was doing, and they kind of rebelled against them and kind of fought them to cease and desist what they were doing. It's a great story. It's very, very interesting, and you can dive really, really deep into that, but it's so great because through that, the Tabaxi ended up getting slaved and pulled out of their island and forced into the rest of the world, or some of them just escaped to survive, and a whole bunch of them ended up in Chult. There's a path going into the Underdark from Mesticar that can come up in a different area, so they even went through that route just to escape. There's a lot of great things that you can pull just from that moment into bringing out who your Tabaxi is and some of the things that were inherent or taught to them. Also, there was a point in the Spell Plague where, like, Mesticar was pulled away from this dimension and sent to Albert, and then eventually it came back. It's a lot of weird things that go on, particularly with the island, which is very cool. It's a jungle-themed area, and there's a bunch of older campaigns that exist about Mesticar. I think it was like 3 of them. So if you ever wanted to update them or use that story in your campaign, it's a great way to give Tabaxi a real foothold in your world. The Tabaxi species is one of the stronger species. They come equipped with dark vision. They have a 30-foot walking speed. They are medium or small if you're using Monsters of the Multiverse, but if you're using Volos, they are medium. They have something called Cat's Talent, which gives you proficiency in both perception and stealth skills, which is fantastic. If you're wearing heavy armor, proficiency will help you out a lot. Perception is one of the most rolled skills in the game, so being proficient in it definitely helps you out a lot. And also, most of the time, I don't see a lot of Tabaxi players not being in light armor or no armor at all, so it's very common for them to be good and dexterous, so stealth really kind of fits into that capacity, so it really helps you use some of those skills for some other things that you might find really useful that you never have the opportunity to take. Cat's Claws. You can use your claws to make unarmed strikes. When you hit with them, the strike deals 1d6 plus your strength modifier slashing damage, instead of the bludgeoning damage normal for an unarmed strike. This is from the Monsters of the Multiverse version. The Volos guide uses a 1d4, but nothing else changes in between Volos and Monsters of the Multiverse outside of this damage die and whether or not you can be medium or small as opposed to being just medium. So most of the time I imagine everyone's going to be using Monsters of the Multiverse. This is good for a couple of reasons. A, if you ever find yourself outside of a circumstance where you have a weapon and you need to defend yourself, this is really strong. On top of that, if you're a monk and you're starting out at level 1, you can use this instead and still add your dexterity to it, so you're doing a bigger damage die than you would normally. Again, this is circumstantial, but you can use retractable claws for something as part of an intimidation or something that you're trying to do, or maybe you're trying to scratch and leave a mark on something on purpose for someone to see. It can be used in more creative ways than just an attack. Feline agility. Your reflexes and agility show you to move with a burst of speed. When you move on your turn in combat, you can double your speed until the end of the turn. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you move 0 feet on one of your turns. Now, this does not count as an action. It does not count as a dash. So you can use feline agility and then dash. And when you dash, you double your movement speed. So your movement speed would have been 60 for that turn. So you would have been able to run 120. 120 feet in 6 seconds is astronomically quick. Based on your purposes for using this, you can move that that speed, and then try and maybe use some sort of sniper ability or ranged ability or something along those lines in order to defend yourself, get yourself out of a tricky situation. This is fantastic with a circumstance where you have other party members and you need to disengage. Sometimes disengaging is pointless because if you're so far away from everyone else, you'll disengage, move 30 feet, and then they'll just move 30 feet and be right next to you. When disengaging, you have to have a way out that would be legitimately viable. And that's something that people never tell you when they tell you to disengage. So having this and being able to run through your party is a better opportunity, and because you'll be able to run through your party, you can take that next turn of not moving at all and have your friends to create that wall to protect you, to then regain your movement speed afterwards. The Tabaxi have this wonderful opportunity to be so different from every other species in the game, and that being because of their sense of value, because gold doesn't have value to them. Stories, unique items, things that cannot be replicated, that is value to them. So when you begin to take that kind of perspective, then someone offering you mountains of gold isn't important. Someone offering you a rare item, a magic item, a black razor, something like that, now that you'll fiend for. And that is what really separates Tabaxi from every other species, is they're the only ones that can define their own value. And when you take that into an aspect of an adventuring group in D&D, your world perspective changes, because it will alter how your friends see things as well, because you'll see that sometimes gold isn't as impressive. Sometimes it's not as cool as something else. It's one of those things that if you take time to invest into the role-playing aspect of your character, you can do a lot with augmenting how the world is and changing how the DM even has to reward you. But redefining value through a campaign encourages this opportunity for the whole party to show off what their desires are and what their purposes are, because they'll see you reflecting it, and that's something that multiplies and grows, and other people want to share that kind of a drive or purpose, and it really opens up the character and opens up the game to roleplay if you really are open to that kind of concept. Without further ado, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking it out. It really means a lot to us. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're doing a big push for 2,000 subscribers, and we are at the halfway mark of the year, and we are right on schedule. But it really means a lot to us if you can subscribe and help us hit that goal. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a big thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. Again, use the promo code Sinister and get 10% off all of your purchases. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.